Hello and welcome to my May 2025 reading wrap-up. This month, I participated in two different readathons, the Goober Readathon and Escape the Readathon. I went back and forth on which one I wanted to participate in, and finally I said, Porque lo nos dos. With the Goober Readathon, it is a point-based readathon where we help Goober, the little ghost guy, learn all about flowers. Each class has 3 different prompts. You have to do the prompts in succession, and I chose 5 full courses with 3 classes each, making it 12 books to read in May, as well as some non-book prompts such as going outside and touching grass and keeping a plant alive, which felt very daunting, but I was up for the challenge. At the same time, Escape the Readathon is a fun team-based game where we are all trapped on the Orange Cat cruise ship, and we must read books to unlock rooms, and the first team to unlock and complete the challenges in the rooms escapes the cruise. I joined Team Detectives, and the prompts are generally lenient enough that most any book you're reading can count for a prompt, so I really never had to pivot from what I was already reading for the Goober Readathon TBR. So I will be mostly talking about the Goober Readathon in this wrap-up, because it decided my picks, and then I submitted all of my books at the same time during the Escape the Readathon. I read 12 books to completion with 2 DNFs. I read 4,805 pages with an average time to finish a book being 3 days. I read 3 romantasies, 2 mysteries, 2 cozy mysteries, 1 contemporary romance, 1 dark romance, 1 sci-fi romance, and 1 fantasy romance. I started 3 new series that I intend to continue, and read 1 book from an already in-progress series. My average rating given was 3.46 with 2 5 stars, 4 4 stars, 3 3 stars, 2 2 stars, and 1 1 star. That's actually wild, and I didn't do it on purpose, I swear. My first set of tasks was I wanted to get the big points out of the way, which was reading a book from the TBR from each of the 3 different hosts of the Goober Readathon. Starting with Genetic Diversity, the name of the course, I selected The Road of Bones by Demi Winters from Monica's TBR. This story follows Scylla, a girl who is constantly moving from place to place with her father. After being forced to witness the public execution of a magic user, the 2 decide to leave town, but during the escape, her father is murdered, and his wish for her is to go north to Copa along the Road of Bones to a place he says will house her safely. Due to the highwaymen and dangerous monsters, she hides in the back of a caravan, which belongs to the Blood Axe crew. They are on an important mission to deal with a mysterious fog and creatures that are acting abnormally. I gave this one 5 stars. The first book of the month for the past couple of months have been my favorites so far, and I hope that trend continues. My only complaint with the book is that a lot of the plot was pushed forward by mistakes from Scylla, which I know for some people can be quite irritating. And it was a little sad for me to read as well. You know, we want a confident FMC, but it wasn't enough to dampen the book for me at all. The romance was everything. Enemies to lovers, grumpy sunshine, he falls first, toucher, and... Something you'll learn about me is that romance matters a lot to me in books, and if a romance hits, I'll probably love the book. And oh my god, the twist towards the end, oh, devastating. I love this book, and I really want to continue on with the second, The Kingdom of Claws, as her 3rd book of the series is coming out in July. I don't want to say anything because it's just, go read it. It's so good. Next was Species Diversity, and I chose Dungeons and Drama by Christy Boyce from Rachel's TBR. This is a young adult contemporary romance where FMC Riley is forced to work at her dad's game shop for 2 months after she's grounded for taking her mom's car and driving without a license. There she meets Nathan, who she does not get on with, But they strike up a deal to fake date in order to keep her ex away from her, and she'll help Nathan make his crush Sophia jealous by joining his D&D game that's held at the shop. It's a super cute romance between a girl who doesn't know anything about gaming and wants to be a musical director who's trying to save her school's spring musical, and a boy who she never really noticed. I gave the book a 4 stars because this book is not in my demographic. I'm not that interested in full YA anymore. I want some adult themes and spice in my romance, but the final 50 pages of this book had me sobbing. There's a lot of character development, the culmination of Riley and Nathan's feelings for each other were just so cute, and the coming together of their friend group who are different but care so deeply about each other. There's a second book in this interconnected series called Dating and Dragons, which just has the cutest cover that I want to pick up. And lastly, in Biodiversity Basics was Ecology Diversity, and I chose One Dark Window by Rachel Gillig from Jess's TBR. This story follows Elspeth Spindle, a girl who suffered from a fever that causes a blood infection that either grants the user magic or it kills them, and anyone who contracts the fever is sentenced to death. There is a fog that is consuming the world, and the only way to lift it is for the King of Blunder to gather one of each of the 12 Providence cards to complete the deck made by the Shepherd King 500 years ago. Elspeth is recruited by the captain of the guard, Raven, to help him find the few remaining cards they need because she can see the cards as lights. Well, the nightmare in her head can. I gave this book a 4 stars because going into it, I really wanted her to romance the voice in her head. But on a serious note, the plot overshadowed the romance, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but if the romance had hit, this could have been an easy fave of all time alongside ACOTAR for me. I just didn't really care about Raven and Elspeth's romance. The plot was just more interesting than they were together. And also the twist of the nightmare felt very obvious for me, so when Elspeth figured it out, I was like, glad you finally caught up with the rest of us, girl. But the ending, my god, just rip my heart out, Rachel, why don't you? This is a duology, and finishing it is a high priority for me once I've caught up on all my TBRs and get the special editions that I instantly ordered after finishing this book. With Biodiversity Basics and 12 points secured, I moved on to medicinal plants. Starting with Herbal Remedies, the prompt was could cure a reading slump, and I chose Dead Companions by H.W. Hartoin. It is the first in the Afterlife Issues series, which is a cozy mystery series which follows Libby and Jess, two best friends who've recently lost their husbands, one to divorce and one to death. They move into a house with their 3 teenagers. The only problem is it's haunted by a mortician. Number 8 used to be the most beloved funeral home in town, and everyone loved Leo. Except whoever murdered him. I wanted to love this book so badly. The premise sounded really cute, but the writing was just really superficial and basic. I hated the teenagers. They felt like they added nothing to the books at all other than padding, which the book was only 300 pages. There were so many dropped plot points for no reason. Leo was really worried about Jess, who just lost her husband, being left alone in the house while Libby went out to investigate Leo's death, but she would just sleep, and why he was worried was never explained. When Leo's murder was finally uncovered, his reaction got maybe 3 sentences, and then it went into the epilogue chapter. Goodreads says that the author has released 4 more books in the series, and they were put out like a month apart, so take that while you will. I gave it 2 stars because I somehow found a more frustrating book than this one this month and saw what a 1-star book really is for me. I won't be continuing the series after seeing the quick turnaround of the book series, and this isn't their first book, so this is their developed writing style, and it's just not for me. Next was Traditional Medicine, and the prompt was a retelling, and I picked Phantom by Greer Rivers, the first in the Tattered Curtain series. This is a modern-day retelling of Phantom of the Opera as a dark mafia romance. Scarlett's father was murdered a year ago, and after suffering a manic episode and being hospitalized, she is diagnosed with bipolar disorder. Solomon Bordeaux is the Phantom of the French Quarter and the enforcer of the Bordeaux family, who splits control of New Orleans with another crime family. And I'm sorry, I tried finding the guy's last name for like 10 minutes and found nothing. It was French, and I spent half the book trying to figure out how to pronounce it, so that's probably why I can't remember it now. And also because I can't remember names of anyone. I swear, every time I go to write a review, I have to go back into the book summary to remind me of what the main characters' names are. But I digress. Rand is our Raoul character, but probably the most different from his original counterpart, and Scarlett's childhood friend, who is a part of the other mafia family that the Bordeaux hate. I gave this book a 3-star. It was enjoyable and spicy and fun, but it didn't do enough different from the original Phantom of the Opera at the beginning of the book, so it took some time to get into it and stop comparing it. I love the change to give Scarlett bipolar disorder and how that facilitated her uncertainty that the Phantom was real. Another reason for the 3-star was I was a little frustrated that Scarlett's character just didn't trust the Phantom because, yes, it is a stalker romance, but so was the original. And Rand was found lying pretty early, and she kind of ignored that lie and believed him later in the story, which is like, girl, why? I feel like I need to justify why I dock stars instead of talking up good points of books. It was fun, but had little substance. I do want to read the other books in the series, which, side tangent, I don't know why this is considered a series. The characters aren't connected in any way, and they are all standalones, but some are retellings, but then some of them aren't retellings, so why is it a series if nothing makes them connected? Why does everything have to be a series these days? Anyway, I added the next to my TBR as I liked the head empty fun this book was, and that is said with the most compliments. I am a head empty romance enjoyer. And the final course for medicinal plants was Pharmabotanicals. No, Pharmabotanicals? Yes. And the prompt was books set in the future, and I chose Circuit Hearts by D.S. Wrights. In this book, we follow Carissa Lark, a roboticist's daughter who lost her brother to a botched kidnapping when they were children, and her mother to suicide before the book starts. In response, her father builds her an android, Adrian, who is her 24/7 bodyguard to keep her safe. I gave this book a 2-star. I wanted this book to be so good, so badly, you guys. It is such a fun premise. A completely reclusive, socially anxious girl is in love with her android protector, which is learning human emotions through being in love with her and dominates her in bed. But there were just so many things I didn't like about the writing of this book. It was super clunky. It felt like it was written by, and I don't mean this as an insult, an amateur author. Like, I feel like if I wrote a book, the writing would kind of be like this. A little bit too much inner thoughts of the character to explain her thoughts and the reason why she was having these thoughts, instead of learning it through action. There was basically no plot at all, although to be fair, the book was only 200 pages. It was essentially an erotica novella, but wasn't marked as such in the tags on Goodreads. And I do want some plot with my porn. I think it would have been fun if maybe she was in any danger as a subplot or finding out whatever happened to her brother, but there was nothing to do with that. But if it had been 400 pages, I probably would have skipped most of it. So it really was a lose-lose. If I'm being brutally honest, I wanted this premise to be written by a better writer. But like I said, the premise was great, and I want to read this by someone else. So if you guys know any sci-fi spicy romances, give me your recs. The Terminator fanfiction reader in me needs it. We completed our medicinal plants course and continued to aquatic plants. Our first class was micro aquariums, and the prompt was under 300 pages. And I chose Rings on Her Fingers by Regina Welling. So Goodreads lied to me at some point because this book was 595 pages on Kindle, which is where I read this book, but nobody tell Goober, okay? This book follows Julie and her group of crystal girly friends and investigative journalist Tyler as she tries to find a long-lost family fortune in her newly deceased grandmother's falling apart home so she can fix it up. Helping her are her dead grandma and great-great-grandfather as ghosts. I gave this book a 1-star. I wanted to DNF this book so badly, but didn't due to the 2 readathons I'm a part of this month. Thankfully, even though the book was marked at almost 600 pages, it was a quick read, and around 3 to 4 hours it expected me to finish it, which didn't make sense, but it was right. It wasn't too torturous to complete. So this book has taught me a couple of things. The first is that after I complete the readathons and book lists I've committed myself to already doing, I likely will not continue to do one like the Goober Readathon because I'd rather be able to DNF books I discover I really don't want to read. Because I've run into several books this month I probably would have DNF'd if I wasn't going to be. I don't want to say punished because it's not that serious, but it's a waste of time. And sometimes money, if you paid for the book, to read a few chapters or half a book and drop it and find another book that fits the prompt. Because with 12 books on the TBR this month for the Goober Readathon, which feels like my capacity currently for books, I can finish within a month. I literally don't have time to spend 2 days reading a book just for it to not count. As a caveat, I will say that for the Goober Readathon, they do count books that you finish at least 50% of, so it's more of a me thing and not a them thing. It's just the Roomba brain in me. I said I would complete it. It's on the list. I have to finish it in case it gets really good at the end or something. The second thing is that I'm slowly developing what books I actually like to read and what I want to be reading as someone who's truly reading for the first time. And I'm unsure if I like cozy mysteries. I don't know. I've read 2 of them this month and I didn't like either of them. I have so many cozy mysteries on my TBR and added a ton more today, as a matter of fact, because the blurbs sound so fun, and then I read them and I'm just disappointed. Do I need the suspense of traditional mystery in order to be interested? Were the 2 books I chose just not for me? I don't know. I might have to read a few more to make a concrete decision, but that's what I'm starting to think. Anyway, back to Rings on Her Finger specifically and why I hated this book. Says the girl who 5 minutes ago said she wanted to be less negative. The book was just boring. The whole mystery is them trying to find where their ancestor hid his treasure and are given a clue to figure it out. And they make no headway for the entire book until the final 50 pages where they kind of just figure it out. So it was just a frustrating read because every time they came up with something, it just ends up going nowhere. The writing style was weird and the romance was boring. It was written in third person, mostly from Julie's perspective, and although some chapters or sections would specifically jump to a different person's POV, you would sometimes just get a couple sentences or paragraphs of someone else's thoughts randomly, and that writing style revealed the villain's motives very early, which was annoying. I personally prefer books that are just from one perspective, especially in mysteries, because I want to learn everything when the main character figures it out. I just find that more satisfying, but I've also come to discover that it's not actually that common to write like that. You generally will get a couple chapters of the killer's perspective just to kind of see what's happening while the main character is trying to solve the mystery. But to tell us what the main villain is thinking right before having the FMC discover it really takes the punch away. And the romance was a bore. Tyler, the MMC, was just a wet napkin. This guy had no personality other than he was not a jerk to Julie's quirky friends, which is just the lowest of bars to clear. Girl, aim higher. It felt very insta-love. They say I love you after knowing each other for a week and say they felt like they've loved each other forever. But it wasn't just Tyler who was boring, Julie was boring. And that's probably what took me out of the book the most and what made me rate it so lowly. Julie had no agency in her own story. The point of her character was that she didn't let emotions cloud her choices, and her best friend is a crystal girly who's vibrant and fun, and they're just so different from each other. And Julie's character development is intended to make her learn to take it easy and go on an adventure, except she doesn't. Not a single plot choice is made by Julie. Her friends do everything, including solving the mystery. And the entire time Julie is annoyed and rolling her eyes and just choosing to let her friends do whatever they want, because she just doesn't feel like arguing with them about it. That isn't character development. Julie hasn't changed. If all of her friends left, she would continue her safe life as is and would have given up on solving the mystery because she was annoyed about it not being easy enough. This book made me rethink my entire scoring scale for books and put DNFs as unrated because I wanted to give this book a 1 star so badly. I just liked it that much. Anyway, next in the aquatic plants course was wetland ecosystems, and the prompt was read a genre blend book. And I chose Lies of Lena by Kylie Snow. And it is the first of a 6 planned book series in the Otasian Chronicles. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Otasian? Otasian. Yes, Otasian. We're going to go with Otasian, which has 2 books currently published. It's a dark fantasy romance that follows Lena, a mage who lives in the outer ring of a city that separates the citizens based on their economic standing, with people from the outer ring not being allowed into the inner ring apart from a few hours in the morning. Her mother, who is also a mage, magically enchants elixirs to heal people and has become notable enough that she will make deliveries into the inner ring. During a delivery, she is accosted by some mean girls, and an inner ring boy stands up for her. We then follow their love story, the secrets between them, and what ultimately tears them apart until they're brought back together 5 years later. I loved this book, and I gave it a 4.5 stars. I generally don't give books half-star ratings very often, but there was just one teeny tiny thing that I didn't like, and I wasn't willing to take an entire star off for it. I want to start with the negative because I want to rave about this book and not end on a sour note for once. So the half-star removal was because the author just really loves love triangles. Lena and Quill are soul ties, this series' version of fated mates. We learn very early that they're meant for each other, but of course, with 6 books, there's gonna be things that keep them apart. But Lena shows attraction to 2 other men in the story, and neither of them felt, to me, entirely warranted. Without spoiling too much, hopefully, there is some tension between her and a fellow mage, but most of their development happens over a year time skip that we don't see, and then an additional 5-year time skip when we learn that this guy left suddenly and he doesn't return for the rest of the book. So since the author wrote out the other love interest, it felt like they had to make another, and she feels attracted to a man who comes on to her very shortly after she's... And check your trigger warnings for this book. Very violently sexually assaulted, which I just feel like I wouldn't want to be anywhere near another guy after that for a while. But although I like their banter and I think they are very cute, a small part of me just can't stop thinking about how soon it was since her assault, and it gives me the ick and feels like it's just there to cause tension with Quill and to remind us how obsessed he is with her. Again, I didn't think it took away from the story too much, but I just feel like it made Lena seem a little flippant in her love for Quill sometimes. Now the good stuff, which was just the entire book. I loved it. The book starts off so sweet, and I cared so much about Lena and Quill. I cared more about these 2 in 50 pages than I did in the 600 pages of Rings on Her Fingers. I'm so sorry, Rings out here for your catching strays. But there was this constant fear of when are things going to go bad? So there was never a true moment of peace, which was great. I was just waiting for everything to fall apart. I loved all of the characters, and I felt my heart ache for each of them and their struggles. The story is very Arthurian coded, with King Ulrich hating mages, and after a tragic event, he calls for a kill order on all mages. We have an Arthur prince who's willing to work with the mages to overthrow his power-hungry father. We have a Lancelot love triangle. We have a quest to find a weapon and a dangerous necromancer. The banter is great. All of the characters felt so vibrant and real, and again, I cared about all of them, and I'm sad I have to wait for the rest of the 4 books. Oh, and this book was spicy. Like, the pining, and then they finally get together and they're having sex like rabbits, because of course they are. They're 16 years old. The spice comes fast at the start and then abruptly stops when the time skip occurs and the characters are separated. But this book is apparently quite spicy. The author's Instagram spoiled me for a spicy scene in the next book, so if you don't like spice, this series probably isn't for you. But I love spice, so that probably is what sucked me into this book so easily. Again, I highly recommend this book, but it is a dark romance and there is on-page SA and some pretty brutal torture in the first, and the author has said that the darkness is only going to get deeper with each book, so check your trigger warnings. To wrap up the aquatic plants, we have marine botany, and the prompt is a book set in water, and I chose Under Lock and Key by Lana Ferguson. The story follows Kiana McKay. Her father recently passed away from pneumonia after battling dementia, and she uproots her life to go to his homeland of Scotland because he had always told her the story about how he fell into Loch Ness and was saved by the Loch Ness Monster as a child. Even when he forgot her name, he remembered that story, and desperate to connect with him in some way after his death, she goes to see his mother. And it is not what she expected. While trying to get her grandparents to warm up to her, she meets Lachlan Greer, who is the handsome farmhand who saves her from falling into Loch Ness, and he is not very nice to her, but he thinks he has his reasons for that. I gave this book a 4 stars. I thought the pacing was a little slow at the beginning to get going, a little too much. I shouldn't like her, but I do. But I shouldn't, but I do. And the third act breakup, which I don't always mind, was quite infuriating because it's like, girl, you just read something very important. Focus on that, please. But the banter was banting. The opening of the book is stellar with just how funny it is. My heart broke for Kiana at the start of this book. If all that happened to me, I would have crawled in bed and never gotten back out. Also, the spice. Oh my gosh, the spice. Girlies. Monster tongue. And this man has a mouth on him. So much Instagram bait potential. That's all I'm saying. It was adorable. I instantly went online and bought a Lumicrate special edition of this book and added almost everything on Lana's backlist to my TBR. Werewolf Doctor? My last set of classes for the month were native plants, and our first was local flora with the prompt, a book you own. Now, I generally decide on my TBR at the end of the month for the next month, if that makes sense. Like, I'll decide it at the end of May for June's TBR, which I know now that I say that out loud, most people do that, I guess. But I'll decide what my TBR is, and then I will buy the books because I don't own a lot of books. So usually what I'll do is I'll go through my Amazon. Sorry, I know I'm contributing to the Amazon. I'm trying, okay? We don't really have any local bookstores where I live, so I'm trying to start using things like Pengu and like things like, I'm trying, okay? Anyway, I'll buy the books if they have pretty covers and try to use my Kindle Unlimited sub as much as I can. I'll usually figure out what's the best cost-effective way to buy a book and then do it like that. So I originally went with The Rachel Incident because I bought it before May when I decided this TBR, and it was the oldest book on my TBR at that point. But this unfortunately became my first DNF of the month. I DNF'd it very early, like maybe less than 10% in, because as I will talk about more in depth with another book later in this list, I am very much a head empty, just vibes kind of girly, especially with my reading. And this is definitely a thinking person's book. So I ditched it early and picked up Sword Heart by T. Kingfisher, a book my roommate had bought herself at Barnes & Noble a little while ago. Sword Heart follows Hala, a widow who inherits her great-uncle's estate after being his caretaker for many months, and her in-laws try to get her to marry into the family to take the estate back. While trying to devise a way to unalive herself after they lock her in her bedroom, she draws a magical sword to run herself through and summons a spirit, Sarkis, who vows to protect her until she no longer wields the sword. This book was a 5-star for me. I loved this book. This book was hilarious. I was constantly laughing at the dry humor and the just adorable main character and her banter with everyone. I'm not always the biggest ham. I'm not always the biggest fan of Prophecy Girl saves the world because she has this special power. And this story is incredibly low stakes. It's just a regular girl who finds a magic sword and he helps her get her inheritance back from her in-laws. It's just a sweet story that not a single time I got bored while reading. The romance was sweet, and something I really appreciated was that there felt like a genuine reason why the characters stayed apart for a long time during the story. So many times during books, it sometimes feels like I'm shouting at the pages, oh my god, just get over your hangups and kiss already, it's not that serious. But this book gave a good reason for the slow burn and made sense, and I appreciated that. Next was Ecological Restoration and the Prompt Continue a series. I continued the Kate Marshall series from Robert Brinsda with the third book, Darkness Falls. The series follows Kate Marshall, who is a disgraced ex-police officer who becomes a private detective and helps solve cold cases. I gave this book a 3-star, 1 star less than books 1 and 2. I found that this book had less personal character development and story with Kate and Tristan, her assistant, and it was almost all crime plot, which the crime plot was good to be sure, but for me, if I'm gonna be following the same characters in a series, I want a good B plot, which the first 2 books had. It also felt a little unrealistic to me that the PI business they were trying to start up is struggling so much. They solved 2 pretty high-profile serial killer cases in the previous 2 books. You'd think they'd get more than 3 cases in 9 months. It felt like a forced drama point. And finally, for the Goober Readathon TBR, we completed Native Plants with Endemic Biomes and the prompt, Author Born or Residing in Your Country. This is an easy one, being a freedom resider like myself, so I chose my oldest book on my TBR, which was Sharp Objects by Gillian Flynn. The book is a mystery of a serial killer in reporter Camille Preaker's hometown that her editor is asking her to cover. She struggles returning home to her mother, whom she never got along with, and a town that doesn't want to tell her anything. I feel like I gave a review on Goodreads, follow me by the way, link in the description, that perfectly encapsulates my feelings on this book. I genuinely don't think I could word it better. I struggled with what rating to give this book because I really just am unsure if I liked it or if I was just intrigued by it. The story was very compelling, but it was written in that very wordy way I don't really prefer. Lots of metaphors and similes that just go over my head. I guess the twist's very early on, but I'm unsure if it's meant to be a mystery where there's a twist you don't expect necessarily. Perhaps it's just a story it's trying to tell you, and if you're paying attention, you already know the answers. I was heartbroken for the issues the main character faced, but also was just kind of grossed out on how much it focused on underage girls. So I'm settling on a 3.5 because even though I can tell that this is a good book, I need to be honest with my own personal enjoyment of books and what I like from them. I'm glad I read it, but I likely wouldn't read anything further from Gillian Flynn because she isn't an author for me, as most thought-provoking writers tend to be. I knew I was reading a traditionally good book while I was reading it, but I didn't fully enjoy it like I did a Sword Heart or an ACOTAR. If you asked me if I liked Sharp Objects, I feel like I would say yes, but there would always be a shadow in my mind. But if you asked me to list my favorite book, Sharp Objects wouldn't cross my head. And with Sharp Objects, we end the Goober Readathon with 12 books finished. But that's not where my reading ended, as I finished this TBR on May 29th and had 2 days in May left. So I tried to finish one more book, and sadly, I ended my month with another DNF. I've been obsessed with Bookstagram lately, and I saw these gorgeous special editions for a quartet of interconnected books called the Kings of Avalier series by Leah Stone. I wanted to buy them, but told myself I should at least read the first one before dropping over $100 on these books, and thank God that I did. The first book, The Last Dragon King, follows Arwen, who is whisked away to the Jade City as the king is gathering all childbearing women in the kingdom with any dragon magic because he needs an heir before he loses his magic, and his magic is so strong it killed his last wife when she tried to give him an heir. This book, in my opinion, was just so poorly written. It felt like I was reading the very first draft of a book written by a teenager. It felt like the writer read ACOTAR and then just tried to write their own book. We jumped from scene to scene so quickly, nothing was able to have any breathing room or emotional weight. The FMC went from I hate him to I love him to I hate him so much and so frequently I got whiplash. I finally put it down at 50% and decided it wasn't worth finishing. I flipped through to see the ending and I was justified in my choice entirely. I was like, will there at least be good spice? No, there wasn't. Just a quick half-page scene that felt like the disappointing sex Hollow from Sword Heart kept describing. 2 minutes, once a fortnight, missionary, no eye contact. At least give me some dragon dick, girl, come on. And with that, we finish our May TBR. I feel so accomplished with how much I read this month. I was terrified going into a month with 12 books to read. The most books that I had read before this in a month was 5 in April. But I definitely jumped into the deep end with that, but it felt so rewarding when I did it. And it taught me so much about how I want to do my TBRs going forward after I finish the couple of lists I have in queue for myself right now. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you made it this far, leave a ghost emoji in the comments for Goober or the orange tabby cat for the Orange Cat Cruise. Thank you so much for the hosts of the Goober Readathon, Jess, Monica, and Rachel, as well as the hosts of the Escape the Readathon, Bree, Deja, Keely, Kim, Monica, Sam, Sarah, and Vanessa, as well as the team leaders Alexis, Tori, Cassidy, Steph, Jordan, Jesse, Mel, and Heather. All of their channels will be linked below. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and I hope to see you guys again soon. Bye! Mwah.